What's up, y'all? You are tuned in to the Listen Up podcast. I'm your host, Jess, and it's time for you to listen up to what God has called you to do. Let's get it. Hey guys, welcome back to the Listen Up with Jess podcast. I'm so excited that you pressed play on this new episode. Y'all, I was a little stressed because I was having some technical difficulties because I have a guest in the building, in the mic with me today. And, you know, the enemy really tried it, but God said, do your thing. And he did his thing. So I'm excited to welcome my guest, Christian.
Hello.
Hi. I'm excited. You know, I'm very intentional about who I bring on my podcast and my platform. And so I just want to kind of share how we met. And when I met you, I was just like, wow, the Holy Spirit is all up in this girl. Okay. So, and we're going to be talking about making genuine connections, right? As young adult Christian women out here, and how important it is to have community. So I met Christian when I was on my walk. So we go to this trail in Marietta, and I'm kind of new to the trail. You've been at the trail a couple times.
Gosh,
that's
yes.
your trail.
It is. That's
yes,
my trail.
That's your trail. Yeah, like I had a trail in Smyrna where I lived before, and so then moving to Marietta, I was trying to find somewhere that had like a nice walking trail. And I like to do my walks usually like on a Sunday to connect with God. And so I saw you walking, and this girl was reading a book. And far away, I had never seen anyone like walk and read at the same time. Like I was like, wow, she's really walking and reading. And it was earlier in the morning, like, you know, and so I'm like, wow. And so then I was like, I wonder what she's reading. This is all of the thoughts in my head, right? I'm like, what is she reading? And then I get closer and I did another lap and I walked by and I was like, oh, she's reading the Bible. And I was like, oh, I have to talk to her now, right? It was just something like this. God was telling me like, talk to her. And those that know me know that I am I'm an extrovert. So it's not hard for me to like talk to a stranger. But also during that time, you know, that's your intimate one-on-one time. You just don't want to always be bothered, you know? But I don't know, something touched me when I saw you reading the Bible, because then I was like, wow, we really have something in common. So then it just made me even more intrigued to say something. And you know that like when you know God is telling you to do something and then you're sitting here and you're like, your heart's pounding. You're like, I don't want to.
We're nervous.
Yeah, like I really don't want to though, God. Like, I mean, I don't want to disrupt her. I don't know how she's going to respond, act. You know, you might be reading the Bible, but are you about the Bible?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of readers out here, not doers. So I was nervous, like, what if she doesn't even want to talk to me?
Right.
And do you remember what I said to you? I was like,
I don't, but I remember I was sitting on a bench.
oh yeah, you're sitting down.
Yeah.
Yes. And I knew that. So I was like, okay, God, she's sitting. And I was like, let me just stop. And I think I was like, are you reading the Bible? Or something like that.
That's what you said. Yeah, exactly.
And you were like, yes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that.
Yes. And it started from there.
And it just started from there.
Yeah.
And I just was just like, I was so happy after our conversation. I felt lighter. I felt more connected to someone I never even met before. But almost like I felt like I've met you before.
Absolutely.
You know, because we had so much synergy and commonality when it comes to Christ.
Yeah.
And so I think whenever you run into people like that, like it is so intentional.
It is.
It is from God.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you feel after during our conversation? Was it weird? Were you like, who is this girl?
No, it wasn't weird. So
Okay.
I've shared with you that I come to that park because I like to spend time with God.
Yeah.
Early in the mornings, that's my quiet time, especially on a Sunday. I like to get out early before service and just have my one-on-one time with God. But what you did not know, I don't think I ever shared this with you.
Oh, no.
That a part of my prayer that morning was, Lord, I need friends. And I want in-person friends. Because I have international friends. I'm so serious.
Oh, I'm about to
So
cry.
serious.
Really?
Dead serious. It was like my
No
prayer. Like I
way.
had some little boohoo tears because I'm like, Lord, I miss in-person friends.
Yeah.
'Cause the journey to healthy friendship, healthy Christian friendship.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. So
Talk about that.
That was my. Ooh. where do I begin? So I'm sure you have also had friends in the faith that, I will put it like this, they go to church, but they don't live the faith. And it's not about perfection, but living the faith. There's a different tone with that, even if you are messing up. But to actually be living the faith. I did not have Christian friends that were living the faith. I had Christian friends that went to church, but it was a Sunday thing for them. And unfortunately, those relationships, they just simply didn't end well. And because I am a giver and a lover, at those times when those relationships ended, I didn't quite understand that everything has a season and a time. So I took it hard. And so I was coming off of a season where I was feeling like, okay, Lord, you prepared my heart. I'm ready for friends again. And so, Lord, give me some friends. And so I had been praying for a couple of months, but particularly that morning, I was like, God, I'm ready. I want some in-person friends. And normally I don't stay and walk the track. Normally I don't walk the track with my Bible either. It was just that morning, whatever God put on my heart, I was reading it. I spent more time in that park that day than I normally did. And I think it was intentionally for you. And when we ended our conversation, I was like, Lord, you're funny, because it just left my mouth. It had just left my mouth before you showed up. And so when you say God is intentional is an understatement about the God that we serve. It's such an understatement, because I felt, not only did I feel his presence in our interaction, but I felt his presence within you. And so it's like an inside joke with God sometimes. Like, oh, I heard you. I heard you. Yes. It's so crazy. Actually, my pastor was just preaching about the art of asking. And we're in this new series about the art of asking. And he was saying how we have to have like this boldness in what we're asking God, and knowing that sometimes he overhears our heart, like our complaints, our heart's desires, even with us even having to say anything to him, right? And with him, like he was saying, we serve a nosy God. And we was like, thank God he's nosy. Thank God, like there's so many times where we don't even have to say much, and he already knows what he needs, and then he goes and supplies that thing. So like when you were saying like it had just left your mouth, but he already knew the desire of your heart, that longing for a genuine connection with someone in person, and then provided it right on time. Not only is he nosy, but he will wait until you're ready. Because it had been a longing in my heart. But it's one thing to want it, and it's another thing to say it. When we say it, we give God and his angels the permission to do. And I think that's what he needed that morning. As I'm talking through it, he needed permission to introduce you to my life, and permission for some things not to fail, because I met other people after you, or for some things to fail. I met other people after you, and those they were also presented themselves as godly, but it just didn't work out. But you have to be open to both in order to receive the good of one of them.
Oh, I love that.
Me too.
Listen, for me, I'm just, when God tells me to like reach out, speak to this girl. Okay, like I said, initially I was just like, I don't know how she's gonna respond or react, because I don't know who you are, right? But then when I saw the Bible, I felt like that was the invitation. And then after talking to you, I feel like for me, like I needed also someone that was in that spiritual space, like that has the confidence, right, to go into a public setting, because everyone walks that park. So you run into so many people, and for you to like have like you're in your own like space and zone where you're like, I have my Bible, my music, I'm connecting with God, and I was like, ooh, I love that. I want to be able to do that. Like you got me curious about opening my Bible, which I have my Bible app, but like to open my physical Bible, like I realized I was like, dang, I haven't done that in a minute, and where I'm at is like I'm looking for also more spiritually minded individuals that I can look up to, or that connect with deeper. because I've been in this season of healing. So like my friends come to me for prayer, but I'd be like, child, I need prayer. Yes. Like, you know, my mind is all over the place. My healing journey is all over the place. So yeah, like I'm not in this like, my relationship goes like in waves, like with God. But the beauty is that God is always there. I'm always running to him. Yeah. And it was just refreshing to see another young adult that was just in her own space and her own intimacy in there and connecting. And I was just like, I wanted some of that, you know? And I feel like now we meet up, you know, every other Sunday we try to do like, and our conversations are so healing.
They are.
Like getting your wisdom and it just being reciprocal. Like
likewise,
you know, it's just so like
I leave so full that I think if we were to meet more often, I think I would explode. I really do feel so full when I'm in your presence, and I have not had that type of reciprocal relationship like you speak of, because I am the pourer, I am the giver.
Right, same.
And so I'm just learning that.
Yeah.
I need something different in this season of my life.
Yeah.
I need someone who can pour into me and allow me to pour into them. But I had to understand that it required me to be vulnerable and open myself back up to friendships. Because I was a little nervous. Like, no, I'm not doing this, God. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do this. They're going to have to check all the boxes off. But he had to kind of wash that out of my heart.
Yeah.
Because the old Christian would not have necessarily spoke to you in the park just simply because she's a little guarded. She's a little sheltered. She's a little nervous. But the Christian you met at the park was ready for new people to come into our life with an understanding that I have to bring my full self to the table in order for any type of relationship to work right now.
Yeah.
And that's the vulnerable part of it.
The vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I talk about that a lot. I had an episode about leaning into vulnerability and how, like, especially when we're in this space of us trying to connect and find friendships as we're adulting, like adulting friendships be hard. They do, okay?
Hard is to understand.
Hard, yes, it's work. And like I was saying, like I feel like when I hear like it's hard to make friends as an adult, or no new friends, I hear those things and I'm thinking, I was like, it's not hard for me because I've allowed myself to have an open heart and mind to it, right? Like, I know that I'm a seasonal individual, right? And so I've made connections with almost every city that I've lived in, and I've made a connection, deep connections with, and then it's like, okay, you were there for that season of my life, and I loved, and we needed each other, and we're there, and now I go somewhere else. Like, we don't have ownership of anyone. And I think that's something we have to realize in all relationships, okay? Like, we think that based off of the years, right, that we've known someone, that determines ownership and my, longevity with someone. It's like, but even if you've known them since you were, little, or teenage years, or high school, even college, you're not the same person. So you need to learn how to attract who you are in this season and where you are. And be okay. Don't take it personal if some of those friendships expire. So like you were talking about before, you're like, at first you were just like, and maybe let's talk about the transition, right? Like, and I want to hear your story more of like, your faith journey and how, you could have been saved all your life. We was all saved, but we wasn't all living that life, in relationship. And that's what I talk about, because like, we can't judge, life based off of titles and years of Christianity and things like that, but relationship with God, right? We could be in the church and been born in the church, but really not of a church and having a church-like heart. So talk about that journey and like with your friend and navigating friendships and your relationship with God.
So I've been saved all my life.
You're right.
No, but my father was a pastor, so I've literally been in church all my life, falling asleep on the church pews.
Right.
but I'll skip that part because it's less interesting. I didn't get interested until I started to build a relationship with God, which is so transformational for me.
Yeah.
My relationship building process, I would say, started when I was about 15, 16, but it really did not take off until 2020. It was something about being alone. And I honestly say, if your relationship with God did not change in 2020, then I think you missed one of God's pivotal points for shutting down the whole entire country.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that's deep though.
Relationship. My relationship changed with God. I transformed as a person because my relationship changed with God. And I lost a lot of friendships. So the friendships that I mentioned earlier, two of my very closest friends, not necessarily passed away, but they passed from my life.
Yeah.
And so moving into the friendship side of it, God had to teach me how to hold things with an open hand, because I would hold on to things with a grasp.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that people, things, family, all of those type of things stayed in my life.
Yeah.
But understanding that God can move it out of my hands freely whenever He wants to, however He wants to, and to replace those things, that has really helped prepare my heart for friendship now.
Wow.
And so, like I said, I'm pretty sure I could tell you all the negative things that I got into, but one of the amazing things that I have grown into and learned in my relationship with God is His grace.
Yes.
And you don't get an understanding of grace just on a Sunday morning for an hour or 2 hours. You get an understanding of grace in prayer. And I mean, honest conversation with God, not on your knees, Hail Marys, and running through the Lord's Prayer. I'm talking about honest conversation. God, I don't like this. God, I'm uncomfortable here. God, I don't know why this didn't work out for me. In honest excuse me. In honest conversation with God is where I had an opportunity to understand His grace for me and His love for me, and in His Word as well. Prayer and in His Word, because you get to see His character and His nature. His Word is really a love letter to us. And I never really understood that until I dived into it for myself. I thought that the message on Sunday mornings was enough. And I don't know how I thought that. I guess it served its purpose. Yeah. Serving in church was amazing, still is amazing, but nothing, absolutely nothing compares to the relationship, having a relationship with God. And I don't think that as a whole, culturally, I think we are doing that as a church culture more now, but I don't think that was done before. No. And had it been done before, I think I would have been at a totally different place in my life. Yeah.
Definitely believed like it was more of a performance-based relationship.
Oh, let's go there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
Oh,
but it is. I mean, because that's kind of what we're taught. Like, the things that you do reflect how you love God. And then you were almost taught like that's, and then God loves you more, or loves you based off of what you do and not really who He is and just who you are. And being in relationship in both of those spaces. Like, and accepting that. And it's a journey that we have to go through. And so you mentioned about like, you know, losing like two closest friends and in that capacity. Talk about the grief behind friendships, because I think oftentimes we don't talk about what the grief looks like and how we need to acknowledge that you're going through a grieving season. You know, you're going through a season where God is pruning you and probably, you know, pulling you away from some things or setting boundaries based off of whatever need in your season. How did that affect you?
Well, one, God had to teach me how to process grief. In the Black community, I don't think that we are well equipped to process grief.
Oh, no,
we move
not at
on
all.
very quickly.
Very quickly.
And it's so many things you have to grieve. You have to grieve graduating high school. You have to grieve, you know, that transition in your life. You have to grieve different friendships. There are so many places where grief is applicable, but we do not know how to apply it or know how to process it. And losing those friends was because they said some harsh things. They said some things that made me look at myself and question who I was. And so processing all of that on top of, wow, this person I've been friends with for years, some decades, some since I was a little girl. Now this person is not a part of my life. And they have said something that is somewhat offensive or judgmental to me. And so honestly, God had to walk me through it because I still didn't have space for it. I'm a big proponent and advocate of therapy, but at that time, it was not a part of my life.
Right.
So I did not have those tools. Yeah. I didn't really know anything about self-help. But what really helped me, I've always been a big processor, a big emotional person as well. And so during that time, God was really dealing with me a lot with journaling. So I would write out my feelings.
Yes,
I would
love
write
that.
out how I felt.
Yes.
I would cry about it.
Yes.
I would process that way. And that helped me to move at that time through the different stages of grief. I realized that there were some moments where I was angry. I realized there were some moments where I was kind of happy about it. And there were other moments where I was able to come back and reflect and say, you know what? I appreciate this person for this, for being in my life.
Yeah.
I appreciate this person for being this in my life. And being able to process all of that helps me to be ready for the next relationships in my life. But it took a minute to do that.
Yeah.
It has been, I don't even know if I've lost count of the years of how long that it's been.
Yeah.
Because you have to be willing to go through that process and say that this hurt me, or I didn't like this, or this made me sad, or this made me upset. You cannot process the grief until you acknowledge how it made you feel.
Yeah. You can't heal what you don't feel.
Absolutely.
And I love that you said you allow yourself to go through all of the stages and feel that anger, like the denial, the frustration about it, and then you all the way feeling like, okay, now I can work on accepting, what it is. Accepting what you have been feeling, right? And bringing that to God. And I think that is something it's a beautiful thing that you can do, but it's something that you have to really challenge yourself to do, because we weren't really taught to be authentic and transparent with God. Like we felt like we have to come a certain way, where God wants us in our most vulnerable state. He wants us undone. He wants us to feel safe enough, right? Yeah. To be like, God, I'm missing my old life, or I'm missing my old friends, or I need help navigating. Like, I know I've committed this, new walk with you in this faith journey and this new season. And so right now I need you because I'm grieving. And there's nothing wrong with having those conversations with him and inviting him into the grief, in those spaces. And then I loved how you said, now you went through the grieving process to where at the end, of the stages of grief, you have that acceptance where now you feel like, okay, now I'm ready. You said you have your hands open. God, I'm giving you permission to bring who you need to bring in my life, right? Because you've allowed me to go through all that to prepare me for what's to come. And a lot of times we look at relationships romantically or platonically, and just even with our family too, and just be like, that was a waste of time. And it's like, nothing is wasted in God's time.
Yeah.
Like, if we could really capture that, I don't care how much that person hurt you, like, you learned from something. Yeah. And you can take that on for the next. Yeah. But it's all about, like we were talking, just like the perspective. Yeah.
And as you were saying that, I instantly thought of one of the things that God gave me permission to do coming into being open to friendships and relationships. He gave me permission for it to fail. And coming from a perfectionist, that's yes. Big. It's gigantic.
Big. It's gigantic.
It gave me the understanding and permission that, Christian, it's okay if the relationship that I bring you or introduce to you doesn't work out. It's okay if it only lasts a month. It didn't fail.
It didn't fail.
It served its purpose. It's okay if it only lasts a year. And big to me.
Yeah.
Because everyone I have in my life I want to keep.
You want to
It's hard for me to let go. And that's the perfectionist in me, that if they do let go, or if they are removed from my life from whatever reason, what did I do?
Okay, yeah. You start doing that blame, like,
that?
did I do something
Exactly.
there? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So giving me permission to fail, giving me permission to not have everything perfect, giving me permission to understand that this person, whoever he brings, he can take them away whenever he wants to. Now, we say that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, but we don't really understand that.
Mercy.
Especially if you're a perfectionist, or like you talked about, you have a very religious or merit-based background, which I did as well.
Yeah.
What I do for God, that gets me merit with God. So I got to make sure that I treat everyone in my life the same way that I treat him. And, you know, if they leave, then that means God might leave. All of those dynamics.
Ooh, yeah.
He was able to really, like I said, prepare my heart with the understanding that if it doesn't work, it's not your fault. You have permission to fall. You have permission to fail. I already covered that.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Already covered.
Yeah.
And it's all through grace. And that's also another thing I want to kind of talk about, is how grace is required in friendships or any relationships that you are in. And I know personally, like, some of my closest girlfriends that I've still been friends to this day, where we're like 12 years of friendship right now from when we started at college. And people, you would think, like, it's 7 of us, so they didn't think we would last. They were like, oh, your freshman year, y'all gonna be broken up by sophomore year. Like, there's just no hope. But one of the things that just kept us really solid is having grace and compassion, because we were literally going through life together. And once we graduated, we all live in separate states. We're far away, East Coast, West Coast. We're all apart. And the beauty in it is that we still stay connected because we all have this relationship with God, and that kind of centered us too, where we hold each other accountable. We have transparent conversations. We love on each other. We pray for each other. And it's just a beautiful thing to have. And we're not perfect. We've all gone through our stuff. Like, we've had, you know, divorces, pregnancies, you know, you name it, you know. And it hasn't been easy. But the beauty is that we allowed each other to be each other's safe space and have grace. Like, there's gonna be times where the person that you really are depending on or in your season may not be able to show up at the same capacity for you. So is that somebody you just cut off right away because they can't show up the same way you showed up? Like, I think that's something should be talked about more, because in adult friendships, and I get it, we have a low tolerance at this point. We're at the age, if you're in your 30s, your tolerance, it's something about when 30 hits, you don't want any more BS. You're just like, I don't want it. I don't have I have a low tolerance for it. If I see, like you said, you were going over red flag, gone, out of here, you know?
Exactly. She sneezed. You ain't supposed to sneeze on no first interaction.
And it's crazy that we have such a low tolerance.
Yeah.
But, like, when we are really, like I said, wanting to be intentional in that season, right, there should be allowed some grace. Especially if this is somebody that you know God intentionally put in your life, right? Like, I'm not saying just let folks run over you. Like, you know when you need to head on out. You know what I'm saying? But you also I guess I reflected based off, like, God didn't give up on me in my worst and most ugly moments of my life, and yet he still chooses me, right? Therefore, when in certain friendships, there should be a level of grace extended, and not just this one, like, all right, I'm completely done shutting you off. You know, usually when you get to that point, then that means maybe there wasn't really genuine connection or friendship there.
And it's funny you say that, because one of the things that I understood going into friendship was that there had to be a level of vulnerability, and I equate vulnerability to intimacy. Yeah. And without those two things, there cannot be grace. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's the other person saying, "Well, they don't really know me. Do they really think?" Yeah. When you are courageous enough to be vulnerable and completely intimate, and I mean, not just having those intimate conversations, but really allowing someone to
Yeah.
fully see who you are, then they can fully give you grace. I mean, if you think about it in the context of Jesus, he laid naked on the cross. That is the most intimate and vulnerable thing you can do.
Wow.
And even what he did for us. And
Yeah.
it's in that we find grace.
Ooh.
And so it's the same dynamic for relationships. That's our relationship with him, and that's our relationship with others as well. They're supposed to be vulnerable. They're supposed to be intimate, because that is where grace, that's the door for grace.
Yeah.
That's the door for love. That's the door for those type of things. And I think out of our fear in our older ages, because we've been hurt, because the world is just so different, I think that we come into these new relationships or trying to build these new relationships with a mask on rather than our full authentic selves. And I think when we start from a place of non-transparency is where we run into those stumbling blocks where was this person right for me? Not necessarily saying that they were or were not right for you, but did you bring your full self to the table? Were you vulnerable? Were you intimate? Were you actually open enough to allow this person to be your real friend? Or did we just have some, not so intimate conversations, not so
very surface level,
exactly.
like, okay, girl, let's go out, like, you're my drinking girl, but we don't get deep after that. Or like, you're my girl that I like to go shopping with, or my guy I like to go out, and hang out with, but we're not having those, like you said, deep and transparent conversations that go a little bit deeper, right, on some of the things that you could be struggling with. And I think it is, like you said, it's hard, because like you said, you were maybe a couple years ago, you wouldn't have been open to receiving my, hey girl, what you reading, what you doing, and having that conversation. And it could be attached, right, to some of the trauma that you may have experienced. Like you said, we end up being guarded. So how do we work on really letting our guard down and not allowing our trauma to like halt us from being able to receive healthy people or connections in our lives?
That's a good question. I think it starts with intimacy with God.
Ooh,
if we can't be vulnerable with him and receive his grace, who are we going to be vulnerable with?
Yeah.
And I take myself back to the experience that I've had in church. And I visited a new church today. I was telling Jess before we started this podcast. But one of the things that this church didn't do that I thought was weird, there's always a space, and I was nervous for it too, so I'm kind of glad, where they asked all the new visitors to stand. Right?
Did they do that?
They didn't do that.
Oh, good.
But it kind of shocked me, because I'm like, I think sometimes in church, sometimes we are very cliquish. And we say we want to win souls, but do we know how to really interact and grow relationships with others?
No.
I don't think we do.
No.
And so I was kind of shocked, like, I'm a new person. You don't know what my relationship is with God. I'm not saying no one spoke to me, but just that space for acknowledgement, I just thought it was weird that it wasn't there. And I think as Christians, we do the same things in friendship. We kind of have our big church hat on, it's tilted down, and no one can really actually see us. And when we see new people, sometimes we are so judgmental. I know I was. Sometimes we can be so judgmental that we would judge them out of the opportunity to even be our friend or be their friend. And I think, again, relationship with God will help remove those blinders, but just simply getting yourself out of your traditional ways.
That part.
If all your friends are from your church, then that may mean that
you need
there's a deficit within yourself. If this is the only community that you know how to connect with.
Right.
And so I also say that putting yourself in different environments.
Yes.
So you can experience different things in different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Friendships will stretch you.
Yeah, they will stretch you. Yeah, and they're meant to stretch. I think we were talking about that too before on one of our walks, about how, like, godly accountability is so necessary in friendships. And it's accountability in general, right? But in order to do that, you have to have like a level of safety and trust, right? And I mentioned what you had mentioned to me on my to me at the park when we were talking about. I just did an episode about how love respectfully challenges you. And you had got this quote that said, love doesn't pacify, it pushes you. And I just was like, I was so touched by that, because I was like, that's it. Like, you know, I've seen it in relationships that I've been in, and that I've seen, and just like judging on the outside for other relationships, where I'm like, you know, in order for us to really grow, we should be stretched, you know, and in the stretching, there is accountability, but there's also grace. There's also compassion, but there's also correction, you know, and all of that is just going to mix and make a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It's still going to bring uncomfortability in the conversation. Okay? But we can't just be comfortable all the time. If you're in your comfort zone all the time, are you really getting the growth that you need?
You're not.
Yeah.
We're designed for community. And that's one thing that God had to show me as well, because of course, through the stage of grief and losing those friends, God, I can do it by myself. It's just me and God. And I'm pretty sure that there may be some people listening and they feel like it's just me and God. But I'm here to tell you that I pray that God prepares your heart to understand that we were meant to do this Christian walk with community.
Yeah.
We meant to do it with believers. And as you were talking, I was hearing the scripture, iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
We say that like that's a fun thing. But can you imagine iron rubbing against iron? You're going to see the ugly parts.
Yeah.
You're going to get in the divots. This is going to hurt.
Everything. It's going to hurt. It's painful.
Feel good.
Yeah.
But both parties are strengthened throughout the process of that iron grinding, scraping, and scrubbing against each other. And that's what community does.
Yeah.
That's what love actually does.
Yeah.
And if we wrap ourselves around the fact that this is not supposed to be hunky-dory, that it's supposed to be challenging, and in that challenge I become more like Christ. In that refining I become more like Christ through this community, through this connection. I think we'll approach relationships different in whatever context they come in.
Right. Yeah. I love that you said that too, because when we're talking about like relationships and friendships, you know, I remember we were on the walk and I was talking about how, like, even in romantic relationships, we should really view that first foundation of the relationship as a friendship. And you were like, wow, I never saw it like that. I was like,
it touched me so.
Yes. And then the beauty in it is what you're doing in your friendships, it's like your practice for your relationship with your romantic relationship with the person that you would spend the rest of your life with, right? Like your partner, and being married, right? If that is the desire of your heart, the way that you show up in those friendships is going to be a reflection how you show up in that one. I don't want to be with anyone who doesn't know how to treat their friends right, but then somehow only treats me right. That means there's a disconnect there. That means that you're not going to always treat me right, because maybe that's not the core of who you are, because it reflects on how you treat your family and your friends. And do you show up with grace and compassion? Because there's no way you can just cultivate that with just one person and that not be the character of your heart, right? And so when I'm looking at the way that I show up in those friendships, then I'm preparing myself. I'm going through, like you said, that pruning, that stretching, so where when I am ready for that relationship and God places that partner, like, I've already equipped myself, because now I'm not showing up any different. I'm showing up as my authentic self. I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable. I'm allowing myself to be transparent, even now in this a deeper intimate space with a romantic partner. But I at least learned, and I, you know, got the lessons and everything within my friendships and just took that over into that to allow it to be the foundation of what God has for us. And I think we have to look at it from that perspective versus, like, I just don't see how people can treat your romantic partner completely how you treat your friends. And it's like, okay, is that really you? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
And so when you said what you said, a couple Sundays ago, that did really touch me, because I have not, I'll speak for myself.
It's general. We've been there. I've been there too, sis.
We have not practice vulnerability in our intimate relationships.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, it's every Christian woman's dream to be married,
right?
Picket fence, it's forced down our throats once we are saved.
Yes.
Okay? But they don't teach us how to date or cultivate a relationship. And so when I say vulnerability is missing in those type of intimate relationships, we jump right in with, okay, I'm supposed to be married to you in 6 months. We should have kids by the 8th month. We don't cultivate a friendship.
Yeah.
And so when you said that, a light bulb went off in my head. If we can cultivate that type of healthy friendship and vulnerability in relationship without the expectation or requirement of next or marriage in a romantic relationship, how much more solid would our foundations be? Because we have men and women that are divorced because they don't know each other.
They don't know
because
each
they
other.
rushed into those things.
Girl.
So all of those things lit up in my mind when you actually said that.
Yes.
But I think it's a piece that, not to be judgy.
I love you.
But
because we're the same. That's good, but I'm a judge.
Yes, the church has not done a good job at the practicalities of life.
Oof,
and I think if we have the practical expectation of when dating, this is how to go about dating. When entertaining friendships, this is how to go about friendships. Just the practicality of how to communicate with people.
Yeah, in a healthy way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we had a lot of those things, I think that Christians would be more successful in their walk with God, because I think we get upset when everything is not peachy keen.
Yeah. Yeah,
we don't process that well as Christians. God, I'm saved and I did everything right and I prayed and I went to church on all the Sundays. So why am I not married? So why is this relationship not working? Not realizing that God needs us to be vulnerable. He needs us to be open. He needs us to just learn how to be someone's friend. Do you know how to do that?
Do you know how to do that?
You may need to read a book. I mean, the Bible can teach you and the Holy Spirit will teach you, but He will also give you practical steps and He will test you. So there are other tools that He's given you outside of the Bible to help cultivate these skills that maybe your parents don't know, maybe your local church does not know as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's extremely important.
So important. Like you said, that's that performative based mindset where you think, I've done everything right. I mean, my heart grieves for the Christians that will be like, well, I stopped doing this. I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. I stopped having sex. Now I'm waiting for my husband. And then the husband never comes. And you're like, but I did all these things. And it's like, but God is not looking at what you're doing. He's not a performance-based God where it's just like, okay, you do this and then I'm a genie and I give you this. No, that's not how it is. There's some deeper rooted issues and that He needs to get deeper into your healing, into your relationship with Him, to where you're not just doing this to receive something in. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the purity of the heart. Like how was your heart? What was your mindset? You know, what was your reason? What, as you were making these decisions, right? And these life changes, right? Of cutting off certain activities and things like that. Are you doing it just to receive? Or are you really doing it based off of what God has told you, what you feel like you need in this season, and not just like because you want to receive? Yeah. And I think that's what we've been taught. Like, you know, if you do a certain path, then God's going to bless you. But if you look in the Bible,
no, man.
None of the people that God used had the right path, and that God used them in their mess.
Yes, they did.
God used them in their raw, authentic self, and even while they were making mistakes, He was turning the mistakes into ministry. And so we can't be so hung up on having to feel like we checking everything off, because me and you are so much alike. The perfectionism, you know, where you literally are struggling, feeling like I have to live this certain way, where God is like, I just want you to live with me, not just for me. Live with me. Invite me into the bad seasons too, because I'm already there. But at least you've acknowledged me and be like, okay, God, I'm really struggling with this thing. I'm struggling with this addiction. I'm struggling with this person. I'm struggling with this relationship, this friendship. I need you, right? But we feel like we have to come already done.
Yeah. Wrapped up.
And where God is like, no, I want you undone. the more work I can do with you is when you come in my presence undone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I have so much to say.
Yeah.
Lord, you're going to have to help me. But thank you, Lord. It's the scripture.
Come on, yes.
In our weakness that his strength is made perfect.
Yeah. Oof.
That means that literally he does not get an opportunity to display his power unless we come to him weak.
Yeah.
Who are we to come buttoned up and zipped up? It doesn't give God an opportunity to be God.
It doesn't.
And he had to actually teach me that and show me that.
Yeah.
Like, I want your mess.
Yeah.
And your mess is where I am given the most glory. In your mess is where I get honor out of your life. It's in your mess that we can actually grow and develop. And become one.
Yeah.
And learn each other.
That's
it's
good.
in your mess that relationship is actually born. It was something else that you had sparked for me to say as well, but it completely slipped my mind.
Okay, it was gonna come back.
It's gonna come back.
Yes, but I love when you say it's in your mess. That's when relationship is formed. And if we look at it from the lens starting with God, then we can bring that down into our relationships, even with our family, like our parents, our siblings, cousins, aunties, all them, uncles, then to your friends, or into that romantic relationship where you don't have to come all the way together, right? That they can see the messy parts. I used to struggle with that because as a perfectionist, you felt like in my romantic relationships, like I gotta be the part so I can get the part.
Absolutely.
I gotta be it so I can get it, right?
Yeah.
And I kept seeing a pattern, like, how is it's still not working out? I'm still single. What's going on, God? Like, we still be breaking up. Like, it's still not enough, you know?
Yeah.
Where God had to do this work in me, where he was like, Jessica, whoever I have for you, whether romantically or just in relationship, you are enough. You are enough to where you don't have to be more, and they will accept your enoughness just where you are.
That's good.
They're going to accept it. There is no coming a certain way anymore.
Yeah.
And so now I can move freely in relationships where you're going to see the bad parts. I'm not all Miss Jessie saved, like, no, I be having my moments, you know, like I still have the things that I struggle with, but the beauty in it is whoever is meant to be in my life will come in, and then they'll see my messiness and then be like, okay, Jess, like, you know, but you know, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I want to hold you accountable. I want to walk with you on this journey. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to throw you out because we have two different lifestyles. Yeah. It's more of like, okay, sis, I see you still struggling with this, or, you know, I want to challenge you, you know, to see you in a different, you know, stretch you. Yeah. And I'm welcoming that now. Yeah. You know, at first I wanted to just have it all together, but now I'm like, see all of it.
And that's vulnerability. That is vulnerability, allowing someone, once you're safe enough, to see absolutely everything. Yeah. Without that, you cannot cultivate a real relationship. Yeah. You just cannot. Yeah. And learning that my merit, my check boxes with God did not qualify me for the things that I wanted from him. Because I spent a lot of time being mad because I'm like, God, I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that. Girl. And it's now 3 years later.
What we doing?
Where is he? And then I also had to learn that God will not do my part for me. And that was a big one for me.
What do you mean by that? I can't just
sit at home and expect
Mr. Right
to pop up. The husband to pop up.
The friends to pop up.
God will not do your part. He's going to do his part. And I'm reminded of Amos chapter 9. I think it's like verse 12 or verse 14, where it talks about God rebuilding and restoring. And part of what he says at the end, I think it's a Message translation, it said they rebuilt. They replanted. They did. And then it says, and God planted them. And so that clearly stuck out to me that God is not going to do your part. Okay. There is an effort required on your end to learn friendship skills. Yes. To learn coping mechanisms. Yes. To learn healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Ooh.
We could
You
park
got a
it there.
podcast on that. It
We
was
do.
really
Yeah.
good. Healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Learning to say no.
Yeah.
Learning when to step back. Learning all of those things and then applying them. God won't do your part.
Yeah,
You
that's
have
so
to,
good.
You got to bring yourself to the table.
And it reminded me of the verse, like, faith without works is dead. Like, you have all of this, but you're not actually going in and applying it.
Right.
Activate what he has already told you to do.
Yes.
You know, the anointing that is on your life, right? And you have to do that by going up to people you don't know, you know, going into, you know, rooms that you never thought you could speak up, you know, putting yourself out there. And knowing that if it doesn't work out, guess what? God got you.
Exactly.
It's okay.
That's that back to that permission to fail.
Yes.
Try again.
Try
It's
again.
like riding a bike. You're going to fall down. You're supposed to. Yes, I've given you this skill, but that does not mean that you're perfect at it. You have to perfect it. In order to perfect it, you got to get up every time you fall down and ask me, hey, God, can you ride along with me? Because I don't know how to do this without training wheels. I don't know how to ride the big girl bike. I don't know how to work through this process.
Yeah.
And allowing God to teach you how to be a good friend, to teach you how to be a good girlfriend, how to be a good spouse, how to be a good employee.
Yeah.
It's also the key to it as well. Like, Lord,
teach
I don't
me.
know. I ain't never been through.
I never been there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Teach me.
Inviting him in that relationship.
It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes we get what we want and then we forget about God.
We
Sometimes,
ghost him.
Yeah, unintentionally.
We unintentionally, and we do.
Exactly.
We prayed, we fasted, we went hard. He gives us, we were like,
lost
all
50
right.
pounds.
That.
Exactly.
And he's like, dang.
Exactly.
Like, I got you here. And so that, honestly, he's also, while we are in the waiting, and I want to talk about the waiting. We got to do it in another episode. But while we're in those waiting seasons, like, he's literally testing us, right? To purify our hearts and our motives in what we are trying. What is the desire, right? Because even when we get it, he wants us to be so in love with him that once we do get it, he still gets all the glory, all the honor continuously. There is not a chance, like, for me, like, and we're in my home, right? And like, when I think about the process of like becoming a homeowner and what I went through and how God was on the journey the whole way. When I closed and moved in, there was not by a chance where I could walk in this home and not acknowledge the presence of God, because he was the one, he was the giver. He allowed me to get this. We went through it. And so now every time I'm even in this space, like, I invite him in, like, because this is his home. Like, you know, like, yes, I still go through my things and things I struggle with, but God, you are invited here. You are welcome here, because I didn't get this on my own. And so it's just like, just staying in that state where when you're so in love with him, he still gets the glory. Yeah.
Oh,
so
my
good.
Goodness. That is so awesome.
Yes, this conversation has been so fruitful. I'm so excited that you've joined me. I pray that whoever is listening to this episode has feel touched and moved. I definitely want us to continue this conversation, so we can talk about what you do, you know, your gifts. You're a financial planner, and I think it's important for us to have that discussion. So, but where can my audience connect with you? I know you have a business, so do you have any socials or anything would you would like for listeners to connect with you?
Yes, I do. So as far as financial planning, I'll give you my email that you can put in the description. It's cgoss@fbenefitsinc.com for financial planning. And then I also do make natural skincare products.
Yes.
And my website is freshforever.org.
Freshforever.org. Y'all hear it. We're going to put that in the podcast notes, and definitely we'll talk about it more just so that we can learn more about your products. But I thank you for joining me. This conversation has been so fruitful.
Yes, it has.
Yes. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.